Before we begin, if you enjoy stories where humanity surprises the galaxy, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because out there in the stars, humans are often underestimated, until they prove everyone wrong. Now let's begin. They put the human in the lowest gravity cell. It was meant to be a kindness. That was their first mistake. The detention platform Korath-7 had held 300 prisoners across 12 species over 40 years of operation. No one had ever escaped. Not a Vorath warlord, not a Krath assassin, not the infamous Solani smuggler who had supposedly broken out of 6 other facilities. He'd lasted 11 days before he asked to be let back in. The platform's warden was a Garathi named Swool. Massive, gray-skinned, methodical. He'd run Korath-7 for 19 years. He was very proud of his record. He was standing at the intake console when the transport docked. The security officer handed him a datapad. Transfer from the outer perimeter capture team warden. Swool scrolled the file. Name, Elena Vasquez. Species, human. Charge, infiltration of a restricted military installation. Theft of classified navigational data. Assault of 6 security personnel. He looked up. 6? Yes, sir. She assaulted 6 of ours. 3 Kreth, 2 Garathi, 1 Vorath. Swool looked back at the file. Then at the transport airlock. Is she restrained? Standard cuffs, sir. Combat sedation. She refused injection, and the team felt that forcing it would. Would what? The officer hesitated. Create more problems than it solved, sir. Swool set the datapad down. Bring her in. Elena Vasquez walked through the airlock like she was arriving at a hotel. She was average height, average build, dark hair pulled back, a cut above her left eye that had clearly been ignored for several hours. The cuffs on her wrists were standard-issue Garathi restraints, rated for 800 kilograms of outward force. She looked around the intake bay. She looked at Swool. She almost smiled. Nice place? Swool studied her. You assaulted 6 security officers. They were in my way. They were doing their jobs. So was I. He walked a slow circle around her. She tracked him with her eyes. Not nervous, not defiant, just watching. You accessed the Korath military archive, he said, the most secure database in this sector. I did. How? Trade secret. You're in a detention facility. I've noticed. You have no leverage. She tilted her head slightly. You sure about that? Swool stopped. He looked at her. Cell 9, he said to the officer. Minimal gravity. Keep her comfortable. I want her cooperative by morning. Elena nodded slowly. Comfortable, she said. Sure. Cell 9 was the lowest G unit on the platform. 0.3 standard. It was typically reserved for prisoners from low-gravity homeworlds, species that got sick in normal G environments, species with fragile frames, species that needed accommodation to remain functional. The logic was straightforward. Humans came from a light-gravity world. The xenobiology file said so. It said, surface gravity approximately 0.7 standard. Recommend reduced G accommodation for comfort and cooperation. The guard who walked Elena to Cell 9 was a Kreth named Davarak, 3 meters tall. Dense as a boulder. He'd escorted a lot of prisoners in his career. None of them had ever commented on his footsteps. You walk heel first, Elena said as they moved down the corridor. Davarak looked down at her. What? Your stride. You heel first. Puts stress on the ankle joint long term. You'll feel it in about 8 years. Why are you telling me this? Just making conversation. You are a prisoner. That doesn't mean I stop noticing things. He stared at her. She stared back. He decided not to respond to that. He opened the cell. It was a standard unit. Bunk. Sanitation alcove. Observation panel on the far wall. The gravity plating hummed at 0.3. Your meals will be delivered at standard intervals, Davarak said. The warden will speak with you tomorrow. Okay. Do you need anything? She looked around the cell. A glass of water? He blinked. Yes, I can arrange that. Thanks. He closed the door. The lock cycled with a solid, heavy click. Elena stood in the cell. She felt the 0.3 gravity settle around her. She looked up at the ceiling. She looked at the walls. She looked at the door. Then she crouched down and put both hands flat on the floor. She stayed like that for a moment. Then she stood up, sat on the bunk, and waited for her water. She was still awake 4 hours later. The observation panel showed that Dovrak had checked it twice during his shift. She was sitting cross-legged on the bunk, not pacing, not trying the door, not doing anything suspicious, just sitting. At hour 5, she stood up. She moved to the center of the cell. She started doing push-ups. Dovrak watched. This was not unusual behavior for prisoners. Exercise was a common stress response. He logged it and moved on. What he didn't log, what he didn't realize was important, was that she didn't stop. Morning shift came. Guard Peth, a young Garathi on her second rotation at Korath 7, checked the observation panel for cell 9 at the start of her shift. Elena was still going. Peth frowned. She checked the timestamp on the last logged activity. 4 hours and 50 minutes ago. She leaned closer to the panel. The human was doing push-ups. Still. Guard Dovrak, she said into her comm. Did you log a start time on the physical activity in cell 9? About 5 hours ago, Dovrak said. Why? She's still going. Silence. What? She's still doing push-ups. That's not. How many has she? I don't know. I just came on shift. A longer silence. That's not possible, Dovrak said. I'm looking at her. 0.3 gravity, yes, but still, 5 hours, almost 5. Peth watched. The human's rhythm was steady. Slow, but steady. Like a machine running at low power. Not sprinting. Not burning out, just going. Should I tell the warden? Peth asked. Yes, Dovrak said. Tell the warden. Sewell stood at the observation panel and watched for 3 full minutes before he said anything. How long has she been doing this? Best estimate, 6 hours and change, Peth said. In 0.3 G. Yes, sir. Without stopping. She took a water break about 2 hours in, according to the earlier logs. 1 water break. Yes, sir. Sewell watched Elena complete another rep, then another. Her form hadn't degraded. Her breathing was audible through the panel mic. Elevated but controlled. Get me the xenobiology file on humans, he said. Peth had it up in 30 seconds. Sewell read it. He read it twice. This says they're a low-gravity species. Yes, sir. It says they require accommodation. Yes, sir. And yet, he gestured at the panel. Yes, sir. Sewell straightened up. Get Dr. Orvath, the station physician? Yes. At this hour? Yes. At this hour? Orvath was a Solani with 4 decades of xenobiology experience and the permanent expression of someone who had seen too much to be surprised. He was surprised. He stood at the panel with Sewell and watched Elena finish what he estimated was approximately her 800th push-up of the morning. The file is wrong, he said. Which part? The gravity estimate. It says humans originate from a 0.7 G environment. That's incorrect. Orvath tapped his datapad. I'm cross-referencing now. The original classification was based on... here. What? The observation report was filed from a sample of elderly humans in a hospice facility. Sewell turned. A hospice? Apparently the survey team landed near a medical care complex and assessed the ambulatory capacity of the local population. The silence was long. They surveyed the sick elderly, Sewell said, and the physically infirm, yes, and concluded that was representative of the species. That is what the file suggests, yes. They both looked back at the panel. Elena had shifted to squats. Still going. Still breathing steady. What is Earth's actual gravity? Sewell asked. Orvath found it. He read the number. He read it again. 0.98 standard, he said. Sewell looked at him. That's almost exactly standard. Yes. We put her in 0.3. Yes. Which means she is currently operating in approximately 1/3 of her native gravitational environment. Orvath set the datapad down. We made her very comfortable, Warden, in the worst possible way. At hour 8, Elena stopped. She stretched. She drank the rest of her water. She sat back on the bunk. Then she looked directly at the observation panel. She waved. Sewell stared. She could see it. She knew it was there. She had known the whole time. He pressed the comm. Vasquez, morning, she said. You've been exercising for 8 hours. Had to do something. I don't sleep well in custody. In 0.3 gravity. Yeah, it's nice. Thank you for that. Usually I train at standard. Usually. I go higher sometimes. when I'm prepping for something. Sewell kept his voice level, higher than standard, 1.8, 1.9, depends on the goal. He heard Orvath make a quiet sound behind him. Vasquez, why did you infiltrate the Korath archive? She tilted her head. You know why. I want to hear it from you. There's a list in that archive, names of civilians from 6 systems who were flagged for removal. Your government's word for it is resettlement. That is classified information. Yes. You had no authorization to access it. No. So you broke in. Yes. And assaulted 6 of my colleagues. They tried to stop me. That was their job. And getting those names out was mine. Silence. You work for someone, Sewell said. I work for the people on that list. Another silence. You realize you are not leaving this facility. She looked at the wall. Back at the panel. I realize you think that. That afternoon, Sewell increased the cell gravity to standard. He expected it to slow her down. She did fewer push-ups. She walked laps instead. For 4 hours. He increased it to 1.2. She walked laps for 2 more hours and then slept for 6. When she woke up, she ate her meal and started doing pull-ups from the upper bunk frame. Sewell watched this and felt something he hadn't felt in 19 years of running this platform. Uncertainty. He called his senior security chief. Boren was a retired Vorath military officer, hard as cold metal, unimpressed by nearly everything. She's doing pull-ups, Sewell said. In the cell? From the bunk frame. Yes. Did it hold? So far. Voren came to look. He watched for a while. She's not trying to escape, he said. No. She's just training. Yes. In a cell. Yes. Voren was quiet. She knows we're watching. She waved at us this morning. Voren turned to look at the warden. She waved. Yes. He looked back at the panel. She's not afraid of us. No. Why not? Sewell thought about it. I don't know. Voren crossed his thick arms. I've held Vorath war criminals in this block. Kref killers. Species that could rip the door off a cell with their bare hands. Yes. None of them train like this. No. They raged. They threatened. They paced and screamed. Yes. Boron watched Elena do another pull-up. She's not angry. No. She's patient. Yes. Warden. Yes. That's more dangerous than angry. Day 3. Sewell called in a specialist, Interrogation Officer Keth. A Krath with a reputation for breaking stubborn prisoners through psychological pressure. He'd never failed. He sat across the table from Elena in the interview room. He gave her the silence first. 3 full minutes of it. She sat comfortably with her hands in her lap and looked at a point just past his left shoulder. You're not going to look at me, he asked. I'm looking slightly past you. It's less aggressive, puts the other person at ease. I don't need to be at ease. Most people say that until they're not at ease. He tried the forward lean next. Dominant posture. Invasion of space. She didn't move. He tried the file drop, slamming documentation on the table for shock effect. She glanced at it. My charges? Yes. They're accurate. You don't need me to confirm them. We need information about your network. I know. And you're going to give it to us. She looked at him properly now. No, you will. I won't. Everyone breaks, Vasquez. Sure, everyone. There's a difference between breaking and bending, she said. I've been trained not to break. Bending is expected. Keth frowned. What does that mean? It means you can put me under significant pressure and I'll flex. I'll seem like I'm close. I'll give you small things. She met his eyes. But the things that matter don't move. That's a theory. It's a result of about 12 years of specific conditioning. Conditioning for what? For this. Keth sat back. You prepared for capture. I planned for it, yes. Who plans for capture? People who operate in environments where capture is a possibility. She folded her hands. It's not exotic. It's just prep work. He stared at her. You're not normal. I'm very normal. My species just trained me well. Your species, yes. Humans, yes. He leaned in again. You know what I know about humans? Probably what everyone knows. That you're soft, fragile. A young species that got lucky with technology. She nodded slowly. That's the usual read, yes. You disagree? I think we're the most dangerous species in this sector and nobody's realized it yet. He laughed. You're a prisoner. Today. The single word landed flat and clear. Kath stopped laughing. What does that mean? She looked at the table. I've been in this cell for 72 hours. I know the guard rotation. I know the response time. I know which corridors have pressure-sensitive flooring and which have camera blind spots. You've been in your cell. I've been listening and watching. There's a difference between being contained and being idle. His voice was careful now. You're planning something. I'm always planning something. She met his eyes. That's also just prep work. He stood up and left the room. Sewell listened to the recording twice. He looked at Voren. Voren looked at the recording device. She said she knows the guard rotation, Sewell said. Yes. From her cell, yes. The sound isolation rating on that cell is 92%. Yes. She should not be able to hear the rotation. Voren was quiet for a moment. What is human hearing range? Sewell checked. He found a different file than the standard classification. A military assessment this time. He read several lines and stopped. Voren. Yes. The standard xenobiology file we use for human classification was sourced from a civilian survey. I heard. The military assessment is different. How different? Sewell scrolled. Hearing range extends into frequencies our standard cell isolation doesn't account for. Apparently, they can detect vibrations through surfaces at distances our models didn't consider. They're listening through the walls, through the floor, footstep patterns, weight distribution, the vibration of locks cycling. Voren put one hand on the console. She mapped the facility. Through her feet. A long silence. Move her to cell 1, Voren said. Maximum isolation. That's the high G block. Yes. It's rated for 1.8 standard. Voren looked at him. You saw the file. She trains at 1.8. Then try 2.2. Can a human survive 2.2? We're going to find out, Voren said. And we're going to watch very carefully. They moved her at 0300. 4 guards. Sewell and Voren present. Elena walked the corridor with her wrists cuffed and looked around with the calm attention of someone on a tour. New room? She asked. Higher security, Sewell said. How high? 2.2 G. She processed this. That's uncomfortable. Yes, but survivable. Sewell looked at her. We thought so. Good call, she said. They put her in cell 1. The door closed. The lock cycled. The gravity plating hummed up to 2.2. They watched through the panel. Elena stood in the center of the cell. She felt the gravity increase. Her posture changed. Shoulders back, knees slightly bent, weight distributed. Not a collapse. An adjustment. Like someone stepping into wind. She breathed slowly. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Then she sat down on the floor, cross-legged, and started doing something with her hands. What is she doing? Peth asked. Orvoth leaned forward. I believe she's doing a breathing exercise. At 2.2 G. It appears so. Is that I have no idea, Orvath said honestly. My reference file is clearly inadequate. 2 hours in, she started moving again. Slower than before. More deliberate. But moving. Sewell watched with the specific feeling of a person whose certainty about something is being systematically dismantled. Voren, he said. I see it. The cuffs. Voren looked. Elena was holding the cuffs up, looking at them. Just looking. They're standard restraints, Voren said, rated for 800 kilos. Yes. She weighs maybe 80. I'm aware. Elena turned the cuffs over in her hands. She looked at the locking mechanism. She looked at the gap between the cuff and her wrist. She put her hands down. Voren was already moving toward the cell block comm. Add a secondary restraint, he said. She's not doing anything. She was measuring. You don't know that. He turned. She mapped this facility through vibrations in the floor. She told an interrogation specialist exactly what she was doing and why. She has been calmly preparing since the moment she arrived. He pointed at the panel. She was measuring the cuffs. Sewell looked at Elena, who was now lying on her back and staring at the ceiling. Add the secondary restraint, he said. The guard who entered cell 1 to add the secondary restraint was Davrak. He'd volunteered. He was large. He was experienced. He was not worried. He opened the door. Elena was sitting on the bunk. "Morning," she said. "Secondary restraint, standard procedure." "Sure." He moved forward. He got the secondary cuff out. And then a very fast series of things happened. Elena stood. She turned her wrists inward, a specific, practiced motion, and the primary cuffs opened. Not broke. Opened. The locking mechanism disengaged. Dvorak had a half-second of pure confusion. That was enough. She moved past him. Not through him. Past him. A precise sidestep that used his own reaching movement as misdirection. She was at the door before he completed his turn. The door was still open. She walked through it, into the corridor. Voron was there. He was ready. He was 2 meters of retired military Vorith who had anticipated this. He moved to intercept. She went low. He reached for where she should have been. She was somewhere else. She went around his outside, used his arm as a pivot point, and kept moving. Down the corridor. The alarm started 30 seconds later. By then, she was already in the access corridor she'd mapped from the vibrations of the guard's morning route. Sewell listened to the alarm and looked at the open cell door and the secondary restraint still in Dovrak's hand. "How?" Dovrak said. "The cuffs." She opened them. "Yes. They're rated." She found the release point. Sewell walked to the corridor. "The locking pin. There's a pressure release if you apply force at a specific angle. You're not supposed to be able to find that without tools. You're not supposed to be able to find that without seeing the mechanism." Dovrak stared. She felt it. Through her wrists. Sewell moved to the security station. "Pressure sensitivity. It's in the updated file." "What updated file?" "The one I got an hour ago. From Dr. Das. Orvath." Sewell pulled it up. "Human tactile sensitivity is approximately 3 times what our standard file estimates. They can detect surface texture variations of less than 1 millimeter." Dovrak looked at the cuffs. She felt the release pin. Through the metal. While cuffed. While appearing to do nothing. The corridor lights were cycling red. "Where is she going?" Dovrak asked. Sewell looked at the facility map. He thought about what she'd said. Camera blind spots. He traced the route. "She's not going to the docking bay," he said slowly. "That's the exit. She knows we'll lock it down." He moved his finger. "She's going to the communications hub." "Why?" "Because she never needed to leave." They found her in the communications hub 7 minutes later. She was sitting at a terminal. She looked up when the door opened. 4 guards. Sewell. Voron. She held up her hands. The terminal screen showed an outgoing transmission. "Already sent." Sewell looked at the screen. He looked at her. "What did you send?" "The list," she said. "From the archive. I copied it when I accessed the archive. 3 days ago. Kept it memorized." The room was very quiet. "You memorized a list of classified names," Voron said. 412 entries. It took about 20 minutes. "You memorized 412 entries. I used to compete in memory athletics." She folded her hands in her lap. "It's a human sport. Probably not in your file." "Clearly not," Sewell said. "I sent it to a secure relay. It's been distributed now." She looked at them steadily. "The people on that list know they're on it. They can act on that." "You came here to send a transmission," Sewell said. "Not to escape. I came here to complete the mission. Escaping was just part of it." "You planned to be captured." "I planned for capture as a contingency, yes. Getting in and out clean was the goal." She almost smiled. "They had better locks than I expected." Voron made a sound. "Better locks." The grid on the outer archive was newer than the intelligence suggested. "I had to take the longer route. That's why the security team caught me." "You're saying you made a mistake." "I'm saying the intel was imperfect. I adapted." She stood up slowly. Held out her wrists. "You can put the cuffs back on. The mission's done." Sewell looked at her. "You broke out of a maximum security cell under 2.2 G. "Yes." "Open standard restraints with your hands." "Yes." "Went through 2 security personnel." "Around, not through." "Transmitted classified information across a secured comm relay." "Yes." "And now you're surrendering?" "I told you, the mission's done." She kept her wrists extended. I'm not interested in a dramatic exit. That's extra risk for no reason. Voron stepped forward and placed new cuffs on her wrists. He looked at Sewell. Sewell looked at the terminal screen, the transmission timestamp, the number of recipients. He looked at Elena. The people on that list, he said, they'll scatter, hide, we'll lose them. Probably. You know what that means for your charges, for your sentence. I know. You did all of this knowing the consequences. She met his eyes. Yes, for 412 strangers. They're not strangers. You've never met most of them. They're people. She held his gaze. That's enough. That evening, Sewell sat in his office and wrote 2 reports. The first was the official incident account. The second was a memo to the Galactic Intelligence Directorate. It read, I am writing to formally flag a critical deficiency in our species intelligence files as they pertain to humanity. Over the past 72 hours, a single human operative operating without equipment, without assistance, and under conditions that should have been physiologically limiting, successfully infiltrated our communication system, transmitted classified data, and neutralized 2 security responses. All of this was done with apparent calm, with advanced planning that accounted for capture as an operational stage, and with no expression of distress that our personnel could detect at any point during the operation. Our xenobiology file on humans was sourced from civilian, non-athletic, non-trained samples. It is not fit for purpose. I've attached an updated assessment compiled by our station physician. Key corrections. Human gravitational tolerance is significantly higher than stated. Human tactile sensitivity is approximately 3 times higher than recorded. Human memory capacity, when trained, exceeds our standard estimates by a substantial margin. Human psychological stability under pressure does not degrade in the manner our behavioral models predict. This is not a singular individual. I have confirmed that Elena Vasquez is an operative who received standard human military and intelligence training. Standard. I am requesting an immediate cross-sector review of all human classification data. I am also requesting guidance because I am not certain our current facilities are appropriate for the ongoing detention of this individual. Or, potentially, any trained human. In Cell 1, Elena did her evening workout, 2.2 G. She'd asked Tool to keep it there. Better training, she'd said. He'd stared at her for a long moment. Then he'd nodded. She moved through her routine in the low light. Push-ups, body weight squats, the breathing cycle she used for stress regulation, the same routine she'd done in the field, the same routine she'd done in every hard place she'd found herself over 12 years of this work. The same routine she'd learned because someone told her, early on, that the most dangerous thing in any room is a person who has made peace with discomfort. She'd taken that seriously. She did another rep, then another. From the observation panel, Voron watched. He had the updated file in his hand. He'd read it twice. He looked at the last line Orvath had added. It said, recommend full reassessment of human threat classification. The evidence suggests we have been from the beginning, looking at the wrong things. He looked at Elena. She kept going. Steady, patient. Like a person who understood that everything important required time. Voron set the file down. Put the word out to the other facilities, he said to the duty officer. What word, sir? He watched the human move through the dark. If you're holding a human prisoner and you put them in a low-gravity cell to be kind. He paused. Change that. To what, sir? He picked up the file. Start with the highest you have, and then watch very carefully. He walked back to his office. Behind the glass, Elena finished her set, rolled her neck, and looked at the observation panel. She knew they were still watching. She gave them a small nod. Then she lay down, closed her eyes, and went to sleep. She needed to be sharp in the morning. There was always more work to do. 6 weeks later, the names on the list had moved. All 412 of them, scattered across 12 systems, safe. The Koraf government issued a formal complaint to the Galactic Council about the data breach. The complaint mentioned a human operative. It described the infiltration. It described the detention. It described the escape. It requested that the Council take the matter seriously. The Council did take it seriously, just not in the way Koraf intended. 3 Council members had family members on the list. The formal inquiry that followed was not into Elena Vasquez. It was into the list itself. and then into the people who made it. Elena was released 11 days after the inquiry began. She walked out of Korath 7 the way she'd walked in, like it was a hotel she was checking out of. Sewell met her at the airlock. He had her belongings in a case. He handed them over. She checked the contents. "Everything's here," she said. "Yes." She looked at him. "You ran a clean facility, Warden. Considering." "Considering what?" "Considering what you were holding." He almost said something. Instead, he opened the airlock. She stepped through. She paused. Sewell. He looked at her. "The guard. Davrak. The one who walks heel first." "Yes. Tell him to roll through the midfoot. It'll make a difference." She walked into the docking bay, found her contact, left the station. Sewell stood at the airlock for a long moment. Then he went back to his office. He pulled up Davrak's personnel file. He added a note. "Physical assessment recommended. Gate correction." He saved it. Then he sat back and looked at the ceiling and thought about a species his entire civilization had decided wasn't worth worrying about. He thought about how they'd put her in the lowest gravity cell, as a kindness. And she'd spent 72 hours quietly mapping everything, planning everything, building toward a moment his facility's entire security model hadn't been designed to anticipate, not because she was superhuman, not because she had technology or augmentation, but because someone had trained her to be comfortable in discomfort, to be patient where others panicked, to plan where others reacted, and then just wait for the right moment. He pulled up the xenobiology database. He flagged the human file. He typed a note in the amendment field. It said, "Do not assume comfort is weakness. Do not assume stillness is passivity. Do not assume the quiet ones are not planning. We misread this species at the start. We cannot afford to keep misreading them." He saved it. He sent it to every facility in the sector. It arrived the same morning that 3 other platforms reported similar incidents. Different humans, different missions, same quiet, methodical patience, same result. The galaxy, it turned out, had been watching humans for a long time. They had not been watching back. They had been working. And that's the story of how one human changed what the galaxy believed was possible. If this story moved you, leave a like on the video and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories where humanity refuses to give up, subscribe for more HFY sci-fi stories. Because out there in the stars, humans are just getting started.